what's up? Just thought I'd talk a bit about Death. Chuck Schuldiner, I thought it was such an awesome artist, great band. The first thing I look at Chuck Schuldiner's just ability to play guitar and his solos. That's what immediately got me into it. You know, he's a shredder, obviously, but the solos were also like really melodic and had just an epicness to them. I look at a solo like to Lack of Comprehension, which is probably one of my favorites. It's just really inspirational, you know, picks you up. It's one of those awesome solos, you know, the immediate yeah, just an awesome solo. Also the riffs though, I think Chuck Schuldiner is a really underrated artist in terms of his riffs. You know, you look at a good album like Individual Thought Patterns and songs like The Philosopher, that's a good riff. And Overreactive Imagination, Mentally Blind, songs like that, you know, those are good riffs, and I think he's a little bit underrated in that regard, you know, Chuck. So, but that's okay, because I mean, his music's always going to live on, which is the awesome thing. Every generation, I think, will find Chuck's music, and which is really awesome because he's a great artist, great band. I think talking about the albums and like what were my personal favorites were obviously Individual, but also Human, and I'd probably say Spiritual Healing as well. Just these two ones right here. I reckon this is the first album where Death really got that sound going. Leprosy was getting there. You know, you obviously had to pull the plug, but you know, Chuck's vocals was still, you know, I think he was still trying to figure out where to go with them. A lot of it was still a little bit wishy-washy, you know, bits and pieces everywhere, but you know, Spiritual Healing I think was the first album to have a great bunch of songs on it. You know, you got Within the Mind, Spiritual Healing, Genetic Reconstruction, Altering the Future, those kind of songs. I think those were really good. And then obviously you got Human, great record. Best one produced, I think, probably. Maybe Individual's a bit better. But you got great songs here, as I said. Lack of Comprehension, Together as One, Flattening of Emotions, Suicide Machine as well. Individual is the last like really good record I think Death came out with. Just a really good production there. Great lineup as well. Actually no, I thought Human had a better lineup. But yeah, just getting back to it, yeah, I thought the first album, Scream Body Gore, although it had, you know, probably Zombie Ritual, and if you're really into the, you know, the really fast, punky style death metal songs, it was good in that regard. But yeah, just production values weren't the best, and you know, it was really kind of just all really frantic kind of songs. I mean, you know, if that's your cup of tea, that's awesome, but you know, everything started to get refined on Spiritual Healing, in my opinion. And then when you come to Symbolic, obviously this is where it started to get really progressive. And that's not a bad thing, because Chuck, you know, let's face it, Chuck wanted to get more progressive, because I think you got to get a bit more technical, and the songs become more, like, less structured, and less commercial in that regard as well. But I thought Symbolic wasn't too bad. You know, songs like Zero Tolerance, 1,000 Eyes, Crystal Mountain, obviously, Without Judgment. Some pretty decent songs, and Sacred Serenity, I like that one. But yeah, nothing special in my regard. Just an average album. And then obviously you come to the last Death album, which was Sound of Perseverance. Now, a lot of people like this album, and I'm not a huge fan of it. In fact, I only pretty much like one song that I keep listening to over and over, which is A Moment of Clarity, the last song on the album. Yeah, just, first of all, I didn't agree with Chuck's vocal style, how he changed it. First of all, I don't know why he did that, because you know, he changed his vocal style to your, you know, generic black metal band where it's just a high-pitched, you know, screaming. And one of the things I think, if you really think about it, Chuck's vocal style before that was pretty unique. You know, he had a like a raspy kind of it wasn't a high pitched, you know, black metal-esque kind of death vocals, and obviously it wasn't your Deicide kind of growl vocals, but you know, he had his own kind of unique raspy kind of vocals, so I thought it was pretty good. But then again, sometimes I think, you know, he probably had to do that for, I don't know, some other kind of reason, like, yeah, the raspier kind of vocals was hurting his voice or whatever, we don't know. But song structure, you know, obviously this is the most progressive technical album, and it's, you know, I like Spirit Crusher and Scavenger, but it's just it's not nowhere near as accessible, and I'm not talking about commercialism in a song or anything like that, but it's harder to enjoy, I guess, compared to what they were doing before. You know, when you start to get used to the classics like Spiritual, Human, and Individual, it's hard to, you know, move away from that. But as I said, you know, a great library of albums. You know, Chuck's work was just extraordinary. I'm talking about Death, not Control Denied, because that's another story. But Death was just, to me, they're one of the most unique death metal bands, you know. Chuck created a band where it wasn't your quintessential, you know, let's chuck in some blast beats, let's use, you know, really low guttural vocals and some chuggy riffs. You know, it was really technical, but it was still structured, and, you know, he had a unique, subtle but yet unique kind of vocal style, and really shredding kind of epic solos. And even though he had different lineups per album, he still had some kind of decent consistency. You know, it wasn't completely different until you get to probably the last album. And yeah, I mean, Chuck, you're a master, man. You're great. We'll never forget you. So rest in peace.